Top story this hour: Russian ambassador confident that Ethiopia is able to solve its problems without foreign interference. India reiterates commitment to beefing up economic and other cooperation with Ethiopia. An Iranian ambassador to Ethiopia says taking the issue of good beyond Africa is not necessary. A very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. The government of Ethiopia confirmed that the TPLF fighters have been completely wiped out from the state of Afar, where they have been making incursions in the past couple of months. The government, meanwhile, denounces mass killings of civilians by the retreating TPLF forces. Briefing journalists Thursday, Press Secretary of Office of the Prime Minister, Bilene Seyum, said the clique has massacred more than 200 civilians in the state of Amhara after conceding heavy defeat by the federal and regional forces. With more on this story.
The federal government strongly denounces in the strongest terms these targeted killings.
News has been circulating that the retreating TPLF forces have massacred more than 200 civilians in the state of Amhara in one of the most appalling incidents since the war started. Despite the TPLF declining to take responsibility of the massacre, the government of Ethiopia claims that the massacre was committed by the TPLF fighters out of desperation.
And in the Amhara region, Dabat Warada, in a kabale called Channata Klaimanot, the terrorist TPLF is confirmed to have committed atrocities on an estimated 200 innocent civilians, which includes women, children, elders, and deacons, members of worship establishments. The federal government strongly denounces in the strongest terms these targeted killings. While the numbers so far that I have is that an estimated 200 innocent civilians have been targeted, a committee has been established to investigate exactly how many individuals have been killed on the ground. In recent days, it is to be noted that the terrorist TPLF group has suffered great losses as they are being routed out of the Afar and Amhara regions, and these attacks were retaliatory attacks on innocent civilians or loss attacks.
Briefing journalists Thursday, Press Secretary of Office of the Prime Minister, Bilene Seyum, also confirmed that the TPLF forces who have been making repeated encroachments in the state of Afar have been completely wiped out from the region. Bilene dismisses the claim by the TPLF that its withdrawal from Afar is a tactical retreat.
TPLF's claims of having withdrawn from the Afar region, and I put it quote unquote, that is not true. They have been routed. The Afar militia has been working in close collaboration with the National Defense Forces, and the TPLF have sustained a lot of losses over the past weeks, and this is by way of a successful routing of the TPLF forces out of the Afar region.
Commenting on the recent report by the UNHCR regarding the decrease in the number of refugees sheltered in Sudan, Bilene had this to say.
The Chana massacre in the Amhara region is an extension of the Maikadra massacre, which has not gained enough international outcry, and committed by TPLF's Samri group that targeted ethnic Amharas in Maikadra and brutally killed over 1,000 civilians in the early days of the conflict. So the same group the government alerted early on in the conflict had fled into neighboring Sudan claiming refugee status, and which had been shot down. These claims or these concerns by the government had been shot down by the international community, accusing the government of being insensitive to the plight of refugees. And yet in the past weeks, TPLF fighters with UNHCR ID cards on them across or outside of the Ethiopian borders have been found within the Amhara region, and UNHCR itself over the past day or so has admitted a decrease in the number of refugees that it could not account for.
The office gave an indication that the request is from friends and good wishes of Ethiopia to mediate the Tigray conflict is being reviewed. I'm now joined here by my colleague Daniel Cassan, who is going to update us about the trending issues regarding Ethiopia in the past couple of days. Good to have you, Daniel, here.
Thanks, Solomon.
So what can you tell us about the most trending issues that have been making headlines in the past couple of days?
Yeah, I have assessed the media and I have seen tweets of the Prime Minister and he talked about the unity of Africa, and the other point is about the defeat of the TPLF terrorist rebels from the Afar region. And the third point I've got is about a phone call conversation between Chinese President and US President Joe Biden. And first, let's see, the tweet by the Prime Minister. He tweeted that he underlined the unity of Africa. It's time for Africa, he says, and he emphasized on the unity because he says it is the foundation for growth and transformation of the continent. And you can imagine the natural resources and the human resources Africa has. If it is well tapped, it will be a driving force or a push factor for the change, transformation, and the growth of the continent. Recently, the Prime Minister was in East Africa, and next he was in Senegal and in Ghana. And the major point is about the unity of Africa. He wants Africa to be united. Internally, the Prime Minister is keen on uniting his nations and nationalities, and also he wants to upscale this idea into the continent, and unity has become his major point with regard in connection to the continent. And if unity is pursued well, it will be instrumental to ensure the aspired Agenda 23 of the continent. Agenda 23 is a blueprint. It's a master plan for nations of the continent, for their unity and their independence, and also for their self-determination, freedom, progress, and collective prosperity under the Pan-Africanism. And he, in his tweet, he concluded, the time is for Africa, and the time is now, he said. And next, let's see the war in the northern part of Ethiopia. Unfortunately, the government of Ethiopia already declared ceasefire, but it has not accepted by the other side, and the TPLF rebel groups have expanded their offensive into the Afar and Amhara regions, and in tackling their offensive, recently the Ethiopian National Defense Force, the special forces from all regions, the militia and the FANOS from the Amhara have defeated the rebels from the Afar region, and they have cleared the region from the terrorist group. And this is the latest stride which is reported by various international media outlets. But the Tigrayan forces said they are simply redeployed troops. They withdrawn to redeploy troops to next door to Amhara region for an offensive there, and that may not be real. Reason, and the Ethiopian Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister's office already briefed international media, local and international media outlets about the issue, and for sure the TPLF force had left Afar because they were defeated. And third, let's say about the phone call between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden. this is the second call, the second phone call between the two after since Joe Biden took office. And this second call is after 7 months. In their phone conversation, they talked about their trade war. The trade war has affected their relationship, and there is also espionage between the two. And this coronavirus pandemic also affecting their relationship.
Yeah.
And they have discussed this point thoroughly, and the spokesperson of the State Department said the discussion was fruitful, and also CNN reported CCTV. The Chinese state broadcaster CCTV said the phone call was candid and in-depth, and it was all about extensive strategic communication and issues of mutual concern, and all in all, it said their discussion was fruitful. That's all I have.
Good. Daniel, thank you for your information, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Russian ambassador to Ethiopia, Evgeny Tarakin, says his country and Ethiopia are steadfast in maintaining the status quo of standing together in shared values. With regard to the ceasefire in the northern part of Ethiopia, he is disappointed by the lack of response from the other side. In his exclusive interview with the TV language yesterday, the ambassador has expressed his optimism that Ethiopia has the capacity to emerge out of its problems. Daniel Cassan has interviewed the ambassador and filed the following report.
On the world stage, Russia and Ethiopia generally adhere to similar positions. They are steadfast in maintaining the status quo of standing together in shared values and consistently advocate the strengthening of fair and democratic principles.
Because Russia tries always to stand on the right side, or let me say on the side of right. And since we believe that the Ethiopian position is righteous, we are standing together. We believe that there are universal international laws which we should be taken as a basis for normal international relations.
Russian ambassador to Ethiopia, Evgeny Tarakin, says it is absolutely unacceptable that some countries using as a cover compliance to exert pressure on other countries by interfering directly or indirectly in their internal affairs. In this regard, he downgrades the visa restriction imposed by the United States government on senior government officials of Ethiopia.
As far as for visa issuance, any country has a full right to make its own decision, of course. The other question is, will it help to do anything? Will it help to reach any positive result? I don't believe. When I'm saying we, I mean Russia. We have been living under the pressure of common restrictions for many, many years.
The two countries respect for the right of each state to independently determine its future and resolve internal crises. This principle is directly reflected in the position on Tigray.
I would like to refrain from any suggestions for one reason. What you are speaking about, we are considering it as an internal conflict of Ethiopia. We are considering this situation as a great tragedy
With regard to strengthening Ethio-Russia bilateral relations, the ambassador reiterates there is a push in different directions to give impetus to cooperation.
We have seen a lot of the history, but what is really surprising and amazing is that at any stage, the relationship between our two countries were really very frank, very based on mutual assistance and mutual help, and irrespective of ideology, and this is really a great result of our relations.
The ambassador has also expressed his optimism that Ethiopia has the capacity to emerge out of its problems.
Ethiopia's diplomacy demonstrated new milestones and multi-layered achievements in attracting strategic partners from around the globe over the concluding year. The nation jumped with joy as a result of Ethiopia's staunch diplomacy and advocacy when the UNSC brought back the GERD agenda into the African Union. Jerusalem Bazaar goes over Ethiopia's diplomacy in the expiring year of 2013.
Ethiopia is witnessing new twists and turns both in its domestic and foreign policy domain of led with the incumbent government in power, adopting political and economic reforms aimed at fostering change to bring about development. This has invariably provided an opportunity for the nation to consolidate its relationship with the globe further. The new domestic political and economic reforms and the friendly gestures that the present government under Abiy Ahmed has made with its neighbors has drawn the attention of the international community to the extent of awarding him with Nobel Peace Prize. During the concluding year of 2013, Ethiopia effected reform in all endeavors, diplomacy being one of the spheres. The reform helped the nation bolster bilateral and multilateral diplomatic ties with all corners of the globe.
We have an interest in global community, and we have been strengthening our relationship with the neighboring countries, and definitely this has a focus of gains in the areas of politics, political diplomacy, focus in the areas of economic diplomacy, focus in the areas of public diplomacy, and focus in the areas of citizenry diplomacy as well.
Digital diplomacy was an area where the government worked aggressively. With the advent of digital diplomacy, the nation has decided to close 30 of its missions abroad. The ministry argued that the move was more about merging digital with conventional diplomacy and invigorating internal capacity than about cutting expense.
It is not closing embassies. It is right-sizing the institution, the position of the institutions. Meaning, you will have relations, you will have representations, but that representation will change only the format. In some countries, we'll have resident embassies. In other countries, we'll have non-resident embassies or ambassadors. So basically, the relationship is the same. It will continue, but in different format.
During the concluding year, Ethiopia witnessed the unfortunate event of some Western nations trying to meddle in its internal affairs and use arm-twisting tactics to thwart its law enforcement operations in Tigray in favor of the TPLF. The year was turbulent as Ethiopia fought neck-to-neck with upper riparian nations, Egypt and the Sudan, over its $5.6 billion mega dam over the Nile. Further, the Sudanese army encroached into Ethiopia's territory this year, resulting in some skirmishes in the border areas.
There are some countries who misunderstood it. misconstrued it. There are some countries who actually were confused on what that law implementation activity is all about. It's not only that. After the law enforcement activities, there has been an attempt at restoring and restructuring that part of the country, about rehabilitating those citizens who have been affected by the confrontations during the law enforcement activities. There was also unnecessary gestures and bravados by some European countries about feeling our down, though we have succeeded to do it. The third challenge is to emanate from the illegal occupation of the Ethiopian territory by the Sudanese forces.
However, Ethiopia had also registered remarkable diplomatic success, all emanating from those challenges. The UN Security Council session in July 9 backed the African Union-sponsored talks between Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan in a dispute over the operation of what's expected to become Africa's biggest dam upon completion. Also, during Council's meeting on August 26, several nations backed Ethiopia over the Tigray crisis, while some Western nations pushed for intervention.
There was proposal on the part of the Ethiopian government about investigation into the allegations of the human rights violations as well. That was also a big achievement on the part of Ethiopia. It was an opportunity because the government has allowed an independent bodies to investigate the situation. Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam negotiation is the fact that the UN itself brought back the agenda to the African Union. The recent UN Security Council resolutions was also a big success in the sense that most members of the Security Council were against internal interference in the internal affairs of Ethiopia. They have already voted to leave Ethiopia free. They have realized the capacity of the Ethiopian side to deal with these internal problems. They have also even condemned the other side.
Ethiopia tried to revive its long-standing ties with Turkey, Rwanda and Uganda, among others, in the last 2013 Ethiopian Year. These recent official visits to different countries were part of the government's consolidative effort on the diplomatic sector, the ambassador said. Apart from this, the Ethiopian government has shown tangible success with its efforts towards citizen-based diplomacy with Middle Eastern countries. That explains why the nation managed to repatriate most of its migrants, including detainees and undocumented migrants, to their homeland over Ethiopian Year of 2013.
Spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Dina Mufti, says Ethiopia has seen remarkable success stories over the concluding Ethiopian Year in the face of the major challenges: GERD second filling, 6th general elections and Green Legacy Initiative, among others, are some of the success stories of the country. Arula Taklamaram tells us more.
The spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dina Mufti, gave the ministry's bi-weekly press briefing to the media on major political, economic and diplomatic activities over the concluding Ethiopian Year. He said Ethiopia has seen remarkable success stories over the past year, irrespective of the paramount challenges. The spokesperson stated GERD second filling, the 6th general election and Green Legacy Initiative, as well as diaspora contribution, are some of the success stories.
One of these challenges came from GERD. We have been withstanding attempts to internationalize and securitize the GERD issue. The motto of African solution to African problems prevailed so far. For us, this is a huge diplomatic victory. The second feeling was also realized, despite the doomsdayers' wishes and those accusing us of unilateral actions. Regarding the elections, the 6th national elections, we held transparent and credible elections that had been witnessed and authorized by the African Union Observing Group. That has disproved the doomsdayer's prophecy The Green Legacy project also is another success story that Ethiopia earned respect of its neighbors. The commitment also to bring in our citizens from abroad, the regular repatriations of those who have been stranded abroad because of various difficulties has been an outstanding thing. Our envoys in various countries have been interacting with their counterparts in the countries they reside. The diaspora participation has been spectacular this year with regard to protecting Ethiopian sovereignty and peace and security.
Meanwhile, Dina underscored external pressure, security issue, the Ethio-Sudan border, and the trilateral talks process as challenges that the country has faced.
The unfair pressure on Ethiopia is withheld, and gradually we hope truth will prevail. With regard to Ethio-Sudan border as well, the situation has continued, but Ethiopia is handling it with utmost care and seriousness. We still want to bring to the attention of the international community the fact that Sudanese have illegally kept occupying Ethiopia's legitimate territory, and we would like to impress on our partners to press on Sudanese parts to withdraw.
The spokesperson further noted the repatriation of tens of thousands of Ethiopians from the Middle East despite meager resources and the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The new Ethiopian year draws near, the vibe prevails, filling everyone with new hopes and expectations. In the following piece, we will take a look at the chicken market and an Ethiopian young man exploring it. Here we go.
We got the dodo, we got all the necessary items. What are we about to do with the dodo? We're about to find out today. You already know in Ethiopia, but to burn this is how we celebrate New Year's. You already know, these chibbos are about 15 birr. Inya taxi ውስጥ ማስገባት ስለማንችል ወንድማችን ስለረዳ ለአንድ ሰው በነፃ ይሰጣል ማለት ነው። I gotta pay my 400 ብር ምን ይደረግ? እሺ ጋሽ አይቀነስም? አልቀነሰም። ማንም ዶሮ መግዛት አልቻለም። ስለዚህ ምንድነው የምናደርገው? ቅድም የነበረች ማማ አለች፣ ይሄንን ቅጠል ምናምን የገዛን በጣም እሳቸው ስለተመቾኝ ለሳቸው የሆነ ስጦታ ይዣለሁ። ይሄው ማማ ችግር የለም። ነገ መጥቼ አብረን እንበላለን ዶሮ። በጣም አመሰግናለሁ። ችግር የለም።
Moving on. Ethiopian artifacts, including a Bible, crosses, and an imperial shield, looted at the Battle of Magdala in 1868 by British troops, are to be returned to Ethiopia. Scheherazade Foundation, which purchased the items through a UK-based auction house and private dealers, agreed to give back the objects to Ethiopia. Speaking on the occasion at a reception held at the Athenaeum Club, Ethiopian ambassador to the UK, Teferi, thanked the foundation for their work in acquiring the precious items and renewed calls for museums, collectors and holders of Magdala 1868 heritage to return them to Ethiopia. The foundation CEO Tahir Shah said he knew what the return of the objects would mean to Ethiopians and that through his foundation he hopes to build a bridge between the two nations. The embassy will make arrangements for the items to be returned to Ethiopia. The permanent representative of Ethiopia to the UN, Taye Asqeselasi, has denounced it in the strongest terms the brutal and horrifying killing of more than 120 civilians by a terrorist TPLF group in China locality, Amhara region. The killings must stop and the TPLF perpetrators must be brought to justice now, the permanent representative has demanded.
Don't come to Ethiopia and try to lecture it on where it wants to put its infrastructure. You know, they treat the Nile. This is the Egyptian government. I am not going to conflate the Egyptian people with the Egyptian government, but don't come and try to lecture Ethiopia on how it makes its infrastructure. Moreover, you have aquifers and other water resources which you haven't even fully taken advantage of. And you keep saying, well, the Nile is our life. Yeah, but have you considered these other resources and have you considered how it's going to benefit the entire region? This is going to be remarkable when it finally the filling is all done and completed.
Indian ambassador to Ethiopia said differences over the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam should be resolved exclusively by the concerned parties through dialogue. In an exclusive interview with ABC, the Indian ambassador to Ethiopia, Robert Shetkington, also disclosed that the investment, economic and commercial ties between Ethiopia and India are growing from time to time. Cassan reports.
The Indian ambassador to Ethiopia, Robert Shetkington, spent some time with BBC English, outlining bilateral ties and carbon issues in Ethiopia. The ambassador says India supports the African tradition of resolving African problems by African countries themselves, and this should be manifested in the African Union-led tripartite negotiations when it comes to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
What India would like to say is that dialogue on the GERD Dam is very important. And any solution, any lasting solution to the GERD will have to be guided by African solutions to African problems.
The ambassador also disclosed the investment, economic and commercial ties between Ethiopia and India are growing. The growing presence of Indian investors in Ethiopia creates a strong link and contributes positively to the close partnership between the two countries, as to the ambassador.
I believe that it was because of trade our relations have been there for the last thousands of years. But in the modern era, our bilateral relations are excellent. They encompass political aspects, commercial aspects, cultural aspects, defense, and all aspects that we can think of. We in India are very glad that despite the restrictions of COVID-19 pandemic, Ethiopian Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister visited New Delhi in February 2021. He met the External Affairs Minister of India. Both the leaders discussed all aspects of our bilateral relations, and they agreed that there is so much to do that we should expand all aspects of our bilateral relations.
According to the ambassador, the vibrant engagement of Indian companies in the economic life of Ethiopia, serving as the main source of foreign direct investment of the country, creating huge employment opportunities.
I just want to dwell on the economic and business aspect, which is very evident, which is the most important part of our relations at the moment. We have 617 Indian companies registered with the Ethiopian Investment Commission. They are giving employment to 75,000 Ethiopian workers. Our estimation is that Indian investments are worth about $5 billion, of which $4 billion are here in Ethiopia. If you see the Indian companies, you will realize that about 70% of the investments are in manufacturing, followed by agriculture. So when I say manufacturing, you will see that there are Indian textile companies in Havasa, in Bolelemi, and even in Mekelle.
Appreciating a strong relationship that exists between India and Ethiopia, the ambassador underlined the importance of further cementing relations between India and Ethiopia with diversified economic engagements. India and Ethiopia have long-standing economic and commercial relations, which are centuries old and can be traced back over 2,000 years of recorded history.
Iranian ambassador to Ethiopia says there is no need to take the GERD dispute to either the UN Security Council or the Arab League. The reason behind this is that Ethiopia's interest with the GERD project is using its own water resources, he said. Iran also supports Ethiopia's stance of African solutions to African problems, Ambassador Samad Ali Lakizadah affirmed. Sintayo Tamarat reports.
It has been years since East Africa's mega dam, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, became a global agenda. On account of their colonial period disparities, Egypt and Sudan repeatedly took the issue to the international arena, including the UN Security Council, European Union, and the Arab League, that all hidden interests behind Ethiopia's Abai River and the dam built on it has become clear to the world. And now, the world appears to stand with Ethiopia, as witnessed in the UN Security Council meeting a month ago. By the same token, Iranian ambassador to Ethiopia, Samad Ali Lakizadeh, told ETV English that there is no need to take the issue to the UN Security Council or elsewhere. Ethiopia's stance of African solutions to African problems is the only way out to the decade-long GERD dispute, and Iran supports this stance of Ethiopia, the ambassador said.
We do support African solution for African problems. This is our basic stance regarding the African issues and problems. It is endorsed by the African Union. You have, and your authority have, a strong belief in this solution. Then let's say we support your authorities in this line. African solution for the African problems. No need to take the issue to the Security Council, United Nations, or other regional or international structures.
Ethiopia's interest with the GERD project is using its own water resources, he said.
We believe that Ethiopia has right to use its resources for the sake of its own people. As a diplomat, I am living only 10 months here in your countries, but I am facing shortage of electricity. Then you have completely right to complete GERD, to forward and to supply electricity to your nation, your neighboring countries even.
Resorting to peaceful dialogue can bring amicable solution to the dispute over the GERD and Nile, he suggested.
Regarding to the GERD issue and to the border dispute with Sudan, strongly we believe and we advise the related countries not to miss every opportunities based on dialogue and peaceful manner to settle every dispute. And this is our main position regarding to every conflict, every dispute. We prefer and we suggest and we endorse and we support every solution based on dialogue, peaceful manner, according to the international rules and regulation.
Ethiopia repeatedly says its mega dam on its Abai River is meant to supply light to its 65 million people and extricate the nation from the quagmire of poverty.
Before we go, a quick reminder of our top stories. Russian ambassador confident that Ethiopia is able to solve its problems without foreign interference. India reiterates commitment to beefing up economic and other cooperation with Ethiopia. An Iranian ambassador to Ethiopia says taking the issue of GERD beyond Africa is not necessary. Well, that's it for the news. For me, Solomon Danya, and the rest of the English team here in the studio. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.